First of all, if you're a note taker, you might want to jot this down. When we follow God's plan, it honors His holy name. Gals, you got to know this. As wives tonight, when you submit, because that's what He's called you to do as a wife, it honors Him when you do that. It's your greatest act of worship unto the Lord. As a wife is to follow His plan and do what He's called you to do. Live out how He has called you to live out this role as a wife. And when you do, He's glorified and you're satisfied. You say, I'm not satisfied. I'm not satisfied at all with this particular word. Runs chills down my spine. You know, and I think that's probably why the divorce rate is as high as it is. Because as Eve thought she could come up with a better plan in listening to the serpent, which derailed the whole train, threw the whole deal into a downward spiral, so we sometimes think our plans are better, and that this word submission is archaic, old-fashioned, no longer applies to the culture. No, it does. It does, because God's word is living and active, sharper than a two-edged sword. It still applies and is meant for you and for me to be lived out as much now as it was meant to be lived out in the garden. And when it's lived out, God is honored. And when it's not lived out, He's not honored. He's not. He's not glorified when we come up with what we think to be a better way or better plan. And yet, you know, I feel for you. I know the pressure out there of a community and a society and a culture that is trying to convince you to have nothing to do with this subject of submission. I think that's why so many have difficulty with submission. Another reason that we have difficulty with submission, let's be honest, it's because we want the honor. See, when we do it His way, He gets the honor. It honors His holy name. But our flesh likes the honor. And if we can come up, you know, with something that gives more honor to our name, well, sometimes that's exactly what muddies up the water. If you were to boil down the entire Scriptures tonight into one word, you know what that one word would be? Submission. For guys and gals, for moms and dads, for husbands and wives, for kids across the board, for each and every one of these roles and components that Paul would lay out in Colossians 3, they all point back to where he starts. Submission. We're all called to submit. That throughout the entire Scriptures, submission is the key. And the moment that Adam and Eve refused to submit to God's plan, fell apart. The moment that Abraham and Sarah, in their relationships, refused to submit to God's plan, it's the moment that the wheels came off. The moment for David and Bathsheba, right? You're with me? See, it all comes back with each story that you and I, if we had time tonight to recall and recount, it comes back to a pivotal decision as to whether or not I will submit.